It's Wednesdays. You know what's been making me laugh lately? Not because it's funny, more because it's unsettling. I was standing in Woolies a couple of weeks ago, just picking up groceries. And you walk in looking for one thing and somehow convince yourself you need 14. And that's just me every single time. I went in looking for tofu and having spent roughly about 400 Rand on things that looked emotionally supportive. Anyway, I got home, unpacked everything, made myself a cup of green tea and realized I'd bought exactly the same groceries I'd bought the week before. The same tofu, the same yogurt, same vegan yogurt, and the same vegetables that were almost definitely going to die slowly in the bottom drawer of my fridge because apparently I enjoy buying spinach more than I enjoy eating it. And I remember standing there thinking, did I actually choose any of this? Or did I just repeat myself? It sounds ridiculous, I know. Who has an existential crisis over broccoli? Apparently me, but once I'd had the thought, I couldn't get rid of it. Because then I started noticing it everywhere. I wake up and before I've even spoken to Ryan, my hand reaches for my phone. Not because I've consciously decided, you know what I'd love this morning? Emails. Nobody has ever said that sentence. Ever. My thumb just knows where Instagram lives. Spotify starts playing music before I've decided what I feel like listening to. Netflix recommends something before I've worked out if I even want to watch television. Google finishes my sentences. My watch tells me when to stand. My calendar tells me where to be. Half my day seems to happen before I've consciously arrived in it. And before anyone thinks this is about technology, it isn't. Actually, I thought it was about technology. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized technology is just the easiest thing to blame. Because if I deleted every app on my phone tomorrow, I'd probably still drive to work the same way, still order the same coffee, still sit in the same chair, still worry about the same things, still tell myself the same stories about who I am. And that's the bit I couldn't stop thinking about. How much of me is actually me? And how much of it is just habit wearing my face? I work in marketing, which means professionally I spend a lot of time thinking about why people choose the things they choose. Brands spend millions trying to understand why someone picks one cereal over another, one bank over another, one pair of running shoes over another. And we love telling ourselves we're rational, that we're making informed decisions. Meanwhile, I once bought a particular brand of peanut butter because the jar looked cool. And it's just peanut butter. So let me put myself towards myself. But that's the thing. Humans are incredibly irrational. We think we're making choices all day long. But sometimes we're just following grooves we've worn into the road. And then I started wondering, when was the last time I chose something that surprised me? Not something big. I'm not talking about quitting your job and moving to a vineyard in Tuscany because you watched Under the Tuscan Sun one rainy Sunday. I'm talking about something tiny. Walking a different route. Hell, walking. Reading a book you wouldn't normally read. Calling someone instead of texting them. Ordering that thing you've never ordered before. Because I think somewhere along the way, adulthood quietly becomes repetition. which makes sense. Routine keeps life moving. You don't want to wake up every morning and then have to rediscover how toothpaste works. Habits are useful until they quietly become identities. And maybe that's where it gets interesting. Because I don't think I'm the same person I was 5 years ago. At least I hope not. 5 years ago, I hadn't started this podcast. I hadn't married Ryan yet. I hadn't written the things I've written. I hadn't learned the lessons or life lessons I'd learned, and which life insists on teaching me, whether you've enrolled in the course or not. And yet, sometimes I catch myself making decisions based on who that version of me thought I was. Maybe you do it too. Maybe you've been calling yourself shy since high school, or saying you're just not that creative, or not that kind of person, or not the kind of person who travels, or that you're terrible with money, hopeless at relationships. But really, who told you that? Seriously, who handed you that sentence? Because I wonder how many parts of our personality are actually just stories we've repeated so many times they've started sounding like facts. I think queer people know something about this. Not because we're special, because hell no, we're not special, we're just ordinary people. But just because many of us have had to rebuild ourselves at least once. You spend years learning how to survive. Sometimes that means making yourself smaller, changing your voice, watching how you stand, thinking twice before mentioning who you fancy, reading every room before you walk into it. Then one day, if you're lucky, you come out. And everyone says, now you can finally be yourself. Well, can you? And which self? The child before the fear? The teenager who learned to hide? The adult who's built their entire life around staying safe? It's complicated. Identity isn't something you find under a rock. It's more like cleaning out your cupboard, and every now and then you pick something up and think, I don't actually know why I still own this. Maybe beliefs are like that too. Maybe even ambitions and fears too. Maybe some of us are still trying to impress people we've not spoken to in like 10 years. Maybe we're still living according to rules written by versions of ourselves who were just doing their best with the information they had. Here's where all of this landed for me. The other day, I was sitting on the couch. Ryan was watching something on TV. I wasn't paying attention because, if I'm being honest, I was doing what we all do now. Half watching TV, half scrolling through my phone, and half thinking about tomorrow. 3 halves. The math was just not mathing because it doesn't work. And neither does modern life. Suddenly, I caught myself. I wasn't actually anywhere. Not really. My body was in the lounge. My mind was at work. My phone was showing me someone else's holiday. Spotify was deciding the background music. My watch buzzed because I hadn't stood up. It was like I'd outsourced these tiny pieces of my life to so many different places that I'd forgotten to be in the room. That frightened me just a little bit. Not because phones are evil. They're not. I love technology. You're literally listening to a podcast that probably wouldn't exist without it. I use AI, I work in digital marketing, and none of this is nostalgia. It's just a question. Who is living your life? Not in some dramatic science fiction way, but in the ordinary sense. Who chose how you spent today? Who chose what deserved your attention? Who chose what success looks like to you? Who chose what beauty means to you? Who chose what enough means? And maybe the hardest question of them all, if you met yourself today for the first time, would you recognize the life you're living as one you consciously chose? Or one you just gradually drifted into? I don't think we all need to quit our jobs. Or throw away our phones. Move to a cabin in the mountains. Though that does sound quite divine. But I also think that we all enjoy food delivery far too much for any of that. So maybe the answer is just a little bit smaller. Maybe tomorrow you choose one thing on purpose. Just one. Walk somewhere different. Phone the friend instead of liking the post. Eat at the table instead of at your desk. Listen to an album all the way through. Geez, when last did I do that? Watch the sunset without trying to prove to Instagram that it happened. And not because those things will change your life dramatically overnight. They really won't. But because choosing reminds us that we're still here. That we're still participating in this thing called life. That we're not just passengers inside of our lives that accidentally happened to us. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Maybe a good life isn't built from big decisions. Maybe it's built from thousands of tiny moments where we quietly say, no, today I'll choose this. And perhaps that's enough. Perhaps that's all it really ever is. Until next Wednesday, my loves, take care of yourselves. And maybe ask yourselves just once tomorrow, did I choose this? Or did it choose me? Ciao.